right. The Mighty Mars Rovers, The Incredible Adventures of Spirit and Opportunity by Elizabeth Ausch. Okay, the first thing as good readers that we need to do is we have to reread that title. The Mighty Mars Rovers. And then think, what is this, a Mars rover? And most of us know just by watching the news that, yeah, this is a Mars rover. But it's not just one. This is one rover. It says the Mighty Mars Rovers. So that means there are more? The Incredible Adventures of Spirit and Opportunity. So I know spirit is like what's inside you and what gives you energy, or this is what they say. And opportunity is when you have things presented to you that you can choose to take. Okay, so let's look back at this page. Ooh, so now we're going to learn that this is a narrative nonfiction piece. Okay. We know nonfiction means it's real. It's based on something real. What on earth is narrative? Well, a narrative is a story. So every time your parents put you to bed and they read you a story, they were actually reading you a narrative. And every time your parents were like, read your sister a story, you were actually reading your sister a narrative. And when you decided to write all those cool creative stories, like creative writing, you were writing narratives. This narrative, nonfiction, because this is a true story told with story elements. And all stories have plot. And that comes with the rising action. It's getting climax, falling action, and resolution. Sometimes resolutions are really bad, though. And this one's told in sequential order, just like going up a mountain. You wouldn't go backwards. You wouldn't like start at the top and then go down this side and then magically appear back at the top and go down that side. So our story goes in sequential order, which is a lot like chronological order. Sequential means first, second, third. Chronological means first in time, like this morning, at lunch, and then at dinner. So this one goes in sequential order, but you can also call this one chronological order because this is not just a recipe for first step, second step. No. Text about you don't need to know that for right now. I already said it. Let's look at the 5 elements of plot. Okay, so we have the exposition. That's really just where you introduce the characters and the setting. Oh, we have this grumpy boy who doesn't want to be here, and he's like trying to just get out. Dad told him he had to come climb a mountain, so he's listening to the info. Yakety yak, yak, yak. And then he starts. He's already in a bad mood. He's going up. Oh my gosh, this is hard work. Oh my gosh, he tumbles down the mountain. Wasn't that bad. Didn't fall that many feet. So he has to do it all again. A rabbit bites him on the foot. He kicks the rabbit off of its foot. It flings it into another rabbit, a rabbit colony, and they all attack him. So it's getting really like lots of action going. And then he gets to the top and he sees a field of rabbits at the top of this mountain. I guess it can't be a field because we are at the peak of a mountain. But he sees the rabbits covering the peak of a mountain, just like snowfall would cover the peak of a mountain. And they are all going. And what is he going to do? So this is our climax. It turns out that he screams so loudly that the nearby mountain, the one right next door, starts to have a landslide. He's screaming. His vocal cords are shaking the air so much that he causes a landslide. And all the bunnies run away. That was our climax point. And he's like, whoo, almost got eaten by some bunnies, some killer bunnies. Bunnies in real life don't kill you. But they will attack. And they've got really strong feet. So he's like, whoo. He's like walking down the mountain. In the end, I defeated the monster rabbits. Woohoo! This was the best day ever, Dad. But I don't ever want to go hiking again. Okay, so we have rising action, climax, falling action, resolution. Now, will there be killer bunnies in our reading about the Mars rover? Absolutely not. If there are, I'm going to be very surprised. Okay, so as you read through this, note that there is rising action. Things get tenser and tenser and tenser, just like the bunnies attacking more and more and more. And then there's a climax. The whole like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And then it gets solved. The climax comes to a resolution. And there's falling action. We're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. And then the story is going to end. The resolution, it's going to resolve itself. So look for that as you go along. Another really cool thing about a narrative is that when you are reading a narrative, you can read it with the narrator's voice. You can pretend that the voice of the narrator is in your head. So the narrator is actually there. It's almost as if they're actually a character in the story, even though they aren't always. But in stories and narratives, the voice of the narrator has a big impact on how you think about that story. I mean, imagine if that grumpy dude who's trying to climb the mountain was telling us a bedtime story. He'd be like, oh, and then it went off the rock. It like fell off the rock, and then the bunnies ate it, and then it's over, guys. You would just hate that narrator's voice. So when they choose narrator voices, they choose voices that you actually want to listen to. So as if they are real people. And you need to read the story as if that narrator was alive in the room telling you a story, and you need to hear that narrator's voice. Trust me, it will make you a better reader. And it may not be freaky like he's like actually talking into your ear and you just, ooh! No. But it's just, you can hear it, and sometimes it's soft in your head. So when I read, my narrator would sound something like this. You may read it and they sound slightly different, of course. And their voice won't sound like mine. The 6-minute landing began. Scientists hoped that Spirit would separate from her rocket properly. They worried about her burning through the Martian sky at 25 times the speed of sound. They prayed that the parachute and retro rockets would do their jobs as Spirit plummeted toward the ground. And they hoped that the precious little rover, wrapped in its cocoon of airbags, would survive all the bouncing. Did you hear how I was stopping between sentences? The 6-minute landing began. Scientists hoped that Spirit would separate from her rocket properly. They worried, and I'm emphasizing certain words that I know the writer was trying to emphasize. Writers choose the words that go into their sentences very carefully. It's not like when we write a response to our teacher, which is send. When you want a piece of writing published, every word is like candy to the reader. They just want to eat it up. So you want to make sure you feed them good candy, not nasty, rotten candy. So each word, when you play it in your head, it has its own voice. They worried about her burning through the Martian sky at 25 times the speed of sound. So try it out. You don't have to be a thespian, an actor to do this. because it's in your head. No one's going to hear what it sounds like. But the best way to read, truly, and I know some of you have houses with lots of people, is to read out loud to yourself. So you can hear what your mind is making that language sound like. And I know you're like, but why do I have to hear it? I know what's on my page. Yes, I know you do. But your brain has different ways of learning. I'm trying to find a picture that we could just look at. Oh, there's some guys. Just to change up the view for you. Your brain learns in a lot of different ways. Your brain learns differently when it reads silently, when your brain is literally just translating what the symbols on the page mean and then putting them together to make words. When you say it out loud, though, your brain uses a different part of itself, to now put those words into sounds and then listen to the text that is coming out of your mouth. So yes, you learn to read much better because you're learning it twice. You're learning it in two different ways at the same time. So read aloud as you read at home, whenever you can, or reading under your breath. That's okay. Whispering to yourself while you're in class reading is totally fine too. All right, I'm going to go through these vocab words super fast. Deploy. That means to send out, to move into position. These guys are obviously moving into position. Deploy the copter. All right, transition. I know some of you have transitioned from one school to another. Sometimes you transition from English language arts to science class. Transition means to change, like these leaves are transitioning from green to red. All right, expanse. Look how big that sky is. That's a giant expanse. And look how vast and expansive that field is. It just stretches till like it never ends. Expanse, a very large area. Resembled. These two kids, while they're not the same kid, resemble each other. They look similar. All right, and then terrain. This looks like a really bad landing terrain. I'm just thinking of the Mars rover landing on this stuff. Terrain is basically the physical features of the land, the surface of the land, and what it looks like. International. I don't know why they have this picture here. But international is national. We have nation. So different nations make something international. It's shared or worked on by multiple countries. And I think there's one more. Transmitted. Trans, again. The other one was transition. We move from one class to another. This is transmitted. We are moving one signal from one place to another. So you can transmit, that is an old computer. Wow. You can transmit your email from your computer, send, and it goes over to Mr. Mayer's computer or Mr. Wilder's computer. Oh, look, I have an email. Miss Briles must have transmitted me an email. It's for electronic messages, and it's to send from one place to another, like I just said. All right, guys. Peace out. Have a good read.